All right, I want to take a little bit of a moment to walk you through some of the aspects of APA that you might or might not be aware of. Now, for many students, if you're going to be working, for the rest of your academic career in history or the arts or something like that, all you really need is MLA, and you'll be fine. If, however, you're going to be taking biology courses, physics courses, or psychology courses, you're going to need to use APA, or at least be familiar with it. Now, it does work just like MLA does in that it is efficient. It uses the simplest possible method to provide proper citations so that the work you cite in your own work is reliable, so that somebody can trace down where you got your information from and can evaluate it for your source quality and effectiveness. And so APA is a method for citing sources that works very well in the sciences. And I want to emphasize that MLA works better in the humanities. APA works better in the sciences. APA stands for the American Psychological Association. They came up with a method for citing sources that works within the sciences. It works more effectively than MLA does. MLA does, again, I want to emphasize, works more effectively than APA does in the histories or English classes. And I'm going to walk through an example here, okay? And now you can click on the APA guide, and you'll notice that they have an enormous amount of information. I would say it's a little bit too much, but this is a very useful resource for as you're writing biology essays or psychology essays or sociology. This would be a nice thing to have, but I warn you against getting bogged down or getting overwhelmed in it. Be a little bit careful. I'm going to walk through this, which is the example that will show you some of the essential issues. It covers a little bit too much, but I'll go over some of the essential ones, okay? And here's your example right here, okay? And you're going to see that on the surface, it starts looking a little bit different. It has a cover page. And now this does work slightly differently, but it's got the same idea. It gives a title, which you know from MLA, and then it gives your name. It gives, however, the department that you're submitting it to. This one says English 101. Well, that's interesting. But this APA would really be used in the sciences. Apparently for this essay, they're trying out a science topic, okay? And then it gives the professor name and the date. They do not do it the date like MLA does. They do it the traditional American way, okay? Month, day, year. Again, MLA does day, month, year, and they put it up in the corner above the title. But other than that, it's going to look very similar, but there's going to be, in closer inspection, some very real differences. Now, here's where they start, right from the beginning. And understand that sciences work differently than most humanities do. In humanities, we really emphasize quotations from your original sources. Those are your primary sources or your secondary sources. In sciences, they don't quote very often, not nearly as much. Instead, they more often summarize results, or they, if they're going to do a more deeper dive into something, they might go into some of the methodology, which are included in the source material, in the original studies. In this one, you'll notice from the start, they, according to Thiel, 2017, and this is a characteristic of APA. The year it was published is extremely important, and in most cases, the more recent research is the more valued research, because the more recent research should have taken into account a research from a few years before, or a few years before that. If you're looking up information on COVID, for example, you wouldn't want to be looking up, say, Isaac Newton wrote about the plague in his day. That wouldn't be valuable. It might be very valuable in history, but it wouldn't be so valuable in the sciences to know what the latest information is. And so what they do is they place the year immediately after the name of the source. Now here they do have a quotation. But if you look over this example a little more thoroughly, they don't have many quotations. In this case, they have the quotation. It's 1, 2, it's just over a line long. And I want to emphasize it's not as long as what we would traditionally do in an English essay or a history essay, where generally it's about 3 to 6 lines, and so that you can analyze it. You're not going to be analyzing quotations nearly as often in the sciences, because the exact wordings from the original study are not so important as the results are. And so you often don't quote in the first place, and when you do, it tends to be shorter. But notice with this one, they put P period 91. That's to avoid any confusion with the date. They want to make sure it's P period and then 91. So they do put that P period, which we don't do in MLA. Okay, but notice otherwise, that is, those aspects that I just went over are the primary differences in the text of an APA essay as opposed to an MLA. There are other slight differences. Okay, now if there is no quotation, what they will often do is just put the name in the year of the publication. That will come up in a moment when I go down to the references pages. And notice this one, Wilson, 1998. We will have in the references a Wilson, and we'll look to which one was published in 1998, and then we'll know which one's being cited. But now understand, there's no quotation here. It's just a reference. That's where this information is originally sourced from. So it's in Wilson's article from 1998. There's no need for a quotation. Instead, it's just a summary of the results. So I hope you can understand the difference. It works differently because sciences tend to work differently. It's not radically different, but it is different in very important details. You will get the name and the date. And less often you will get quotations. More often what you'll get are these summaries of the results. Okay, and I'll show you. We can take a look at this. I did a quick write-up of how I would do a psych essay if I was writing in psychology. Here it is right here, and this is working with a book and with an article. Notice what I've done. This is references to a book, Ryan and Dietschy. This is from 2017, and here it is down here. And I'm going to clean this up in a bit, but I just want you to see it in the text itself. I'm referring to the 2017 book, or 2019 book, it should be. And there it is. So you know it's this one. If I had multiple references to Ryan and Dietschy articles, you would know, oh, it's the 2019. Okay. And here's a basic summary of some of their work right here. And it can be found there. It's not quoted directly. It's just summarized. And now here is when I refer to another research. I did not name the researchers beforehand, and I don't quote them. I just give a quick summary of the results of their piece. And here it is. And then I cite their names in the date of it. Notice it's a general summary of the results. It is not a quotation. That's all it is, a general summary of the results and not a quotation. But if somebody wanted to check me on this, they could go to this article. I will come back to this and format it a little bit better. But let me show you in the original article some of the reasons why this goes on. Okay, here's the original article over here. And this is from Learning and Memory, the journal Learning and Memory. And here's the title of it right there. Notice they don't capitalize all the words. They only capitalize the first word. The rest are lowercase. Okay. Here are the authors. There are 2 authors of this. And humanities sources, it is far more often to have 1 source or 1 author than 2, let alone 8. What you'll see in science articles, they are often written by teams. Research done at a university usually involves a lead researcher, maybe 2, and then a number of graduate students or other researchers helping out. One person might be orchestrating the study. Another person might just be the person they're using, to do the statistics. Another person is just really focusing on one aspect and helping collect the research. And all their names would ultimately be part of it even though one or two people were the leads. And so in this case, two people worked together. Nicole Keller and Joseph Dunsmore worked together to do this study on the effects of averse and appetitive counter conditioning on the implicit and explicit fear memory. Okay. And what you'll get is this. These are the elements of an actual study. You have an abstract at the start, and most studies basically work almost like a recipe, where they spend a good deal of time setting out how they conducted the research. And then they'll get to the results. This one doesn't spend as much time as many of the others I've seen going over how the research was conducted. They did do some. Here, most of them spend a good deal more time on it. This one's a little bit shorter. But then most of what you would write about is what they found, their results. And that's here. You don't need to quote this directly in most cases. Just summarizing it would do the trick. That's all we need to know. And so it works more like this, where you summarize it and then refer to it this way. And if somebody wants to trace it down, they can. Okay? And so that's generally how APA and MLA work a little bit differently in the text citations. Let me go to the end. There is a good deal more to APA, but those are the core issues, what I would say you'd want to know by the time you got out of this course. At the end of the essay would be this, the references. There isn't a works cited. There is instead a list of references. These are all the works that were referred to, not just quoted, but referred to. If something was mentioned just in a footnote, it's in the references page. Okay, and so they started off with references. It's in bold at the top, and notice the listings. They do the authors and then the date. Again, the date is very important for scientific research. The more recent the research, it should be built on previous research. The more recent, the usually more valuable. And so then they do the title of the work. Notice once again, they don't capitalize all the letters. And more often in scientific essays, you're not working from books. You're more often working from journals, because books tend to be older. And so you'll get the title of the study. If I went to our original study, it's over here. Let's go to our top. Here's the title of the study, and then you have the name of the journal. This one's called Learning and Memory. And let's go back here. So, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, that's the journal. We would have Learning and Memory. And then they have basically the issue and the page numbers. The issues are a little bit different here and there, but this is a reference to a link to it that'll take you to the original source, if you have that. Okay? And this is usually good enough if you have that material. And that's, if I click over here, right here, it's journal number 27, or edition 27, pages 12 to 19. Okay, and now here's a little bit on how it's going to look in the essay itself. Everything, again, is double-spaced. There was a time when they singled, but everything now is double. Okay, I would urge you to use Times New Roman for the entire work. Okay, you don't have to, but it's a darn good idea because most faculty expect it. And now the paragraphs look something like this. And on the references page, you can get it on a separate page by hitting Control-Enter. That will put it on a separate page. And then you want to center this, bold. And here's Ryan and Dietschy's, and the name of the book is in italics. Good book, by the way. And here's the second listing. Here are the authors, and they use the ampersand in the middle. That is an APA aspect. Then they put the date, and then they have the title of the essay, and here's the title of the journal. Now, many of you are probably sitting there thinking, well, what about the, and I did Control-I for the italics. To review, how do you get that, what's called a hanging indent? Because let's jump over to the essay again, and notice that the first line is at the margin, the second and third line are indented. The second line's indented. Second and the third. Second. How do you do that? Let me review that. We're right here. This is the second entry. I put my cursor to the start of the second line and I hit enter. Notice it did not add a line. Okay. What it did was it put an entry in there. It added what looks like a backwards P. That's a paragraph, a hard return. So it put it in there. If I got rid of it, let me hit Control Z and undo it. If I just hit enter, notice that it's not going to work quite right. It's not doing what I want it to do. It's not working quite right. To get it to actually indent, I have to hit enter first and then hit the tab. You need to have an entry in there before, if you hit the tab right out, it's going to go to the top line. Notice if I go to the second line right now and I'm hitting tab, it's going to jump to the top. There it goes. If I go to the second line and hit enter, I just hit enter and now I hit tab. It puts it in there. That will give you the hanging indent that you need for this. So that's a quick overview for how APA works. So I hope you have a good idea on it. As you go through a science class, they should give you a little bit more familiarity with it. This is just a quick overview. Good luck with that, guys.